GEM algorithm can be copied and improved by the armed forces officer. For the weapon procurement, I feel it should be kept within the control of the Defense Ministry.
Life cycle costing and how we arrive at may perhaps give us the best solution.
Life cycle sustenance management is already included as one of the factors in the procurement process.
We today bring you another episode wherein we have a panel of experts who are here with us to talk about best practices in L1 system. So our aim would be to get their views and give you the gist of what the essence of what they think as a takeaway from this panel discussion. We have with us a very eminent panel, as I mentioned. We have with us Lieutenant General Dr. Anil Kapoor, AVSM, VSM. General Kapoor, superannuated as the Director General Electronics and Mechanical Engineering on 31st December 2020. He was Director General Infosystems prior to that, a chartered engineer, and he was awarded the Eminent Engineers Award 2020 by Institution of Engineers India for outstanding professional contribution in combating COVID. A qualified masterclass independent director board member, IIT Tirupati Technology Innovation Hub, and professor of practice, IIT Tirupati, and chairman, National Advisory Committee, Asset Management Society, India. He is a strong component of C7 ISR, Industry 4.0, PM2, and the latest thinking in AI and cyber and IoT. We also have with us Mr. Pradeep Gupta. He is a technocrat and a bureaucrat. He left the Government of India to set up his own think tank, security and policy initiatives, to work for absorption of defense TOTs and improvement of border management. Besides, he is mentoring startups in AI, VR, AR. He is ex-OSD Indigenization, MOD, ex-Joint Secretary, MHA, ex-PS2 President, and ex-OSD and PS2 Defense Minister. We also have with us Major General Ranjit Ghosh, who superannuated as ADG in the Corps of Electronics and Mechanical Engineers. And he was the Colonel Commandant also there. He's a gold medalist from IIT Madras, where during his post-graduation, he specialized in maintenance engineering. He has served in many appointments during his service, including Chief Managing Director of the Army Base Workshop. He's handled a very large number of responsibilities related to life cycle engineering support, and especially in the requirements related to Army's capital acquisition, revenue procurements, and weapon system development. He has authored articles and books on global defense industry and on technological basis. And we are very happy to have him with us and this excellent panel. And to start with, I will request General Kapoor to give his views, opening views about what he feels about the best practices in L1 system, how he perceives it. It is helping us do what we are doing. General Kapoor.
Thank you very much, sir. And a big hello to all the fellow panelists and those on the webinar. It's indeed a very well-flogged topic. When we talk of L1, we've been talking of it all our lives. And the intent obviously is that you should get the best quality at the least cost. I think that will be a very good procurement. Or, realistically speaking, optimum quality at an optimum cost. And optimum needs to always to be defined. So, and L1 perhaps is the best way forward. I've been seeing this system everywhere. I was in United Nations, where also they follow a similar system with little variations. Now, to set the perspective, since the vanguard has been given to me, I'd like to talk of 3 stories before we get to open the discussions ahead. Now, the first is I was once tasked to do a project which was an open air theater, and an amount was fixed. They said, do this OAT, the GMR style, at 50 lakhs. And obviously, we did a lot of diligence and prudence and came up with a very good architectural view, got in touch with the GMR people themselves. And the grapevine by the GMR was that 50 lakh may be too less for the kind of OAT that you're looking at. But anyway, we said we will still go ahead, and we went ahead and did a tender. And the intention was obviously to pick the best guy at the lowest price, and 50 lakh was the max that we could have given. And lo and behold, we got 4 bids. And when I, along with a small team, visited their premises, because we thought it would be good to first visit their premises and see what they are saying in their quote, we found that the bid that we opened, the technical bid, whatever they had said when we physically visited their premises was actually utopian. And therefore, we had to call off the bid. So that's one example where we felt, and just for the sake of completing the argument, we called all of them and we opened their commercial bids. And we found that they were all hovering around 20 lakhs. When the GMR himself said that it would not be possible to do it in 50 lakhs. So therefore, obviously, they would have done a suboptimal job or put us up a gum tree. So that is one example which tells us that prudence perhaps is very important when you look at L1. Let me get to the second anecdote. We were buying quadcopters, and it was a very hot thing. It still is. And we had almost 20 of these companies which bid for it. And then we thought we will do something called a Q1L1, best quality, least cost model. And out of the 20, we shortlisted top 3 which would meet our requirements. And when we opened the commercials, we found that the A was the best, but he was 4 times the L1. B was the next best, but he was just 1.2 times the L1, and C obviously was the L1. And we justified and went for B. And we had a test audit because of that, and we found it went like, if I may say, knife through butter, because due diligence had been given and the justifications were quite accepted by everybody. The third is, way back in 1995, I was in United Nations and we were transitioning from dot matrix to inkjet. And inkjet obviously was a huge L1 that time and a better quality. But what we realized was, when we did an analysis over a year, that the cost that we incurred just in 1 year of use of inkjet was woefully high what we had incurred in dot matrix. So really that is where we hit the nail on the head to realize that perhaps when we look at L1, the best way to look at L1 is to look at it as a life cycle concept. So later, when DAP 2020 was being framed, there were a lot of discussions on this subject, and I was then the DG Information Systems, and we found it very difficult in terms of technology that was available then to fix this life cycle costing. But to my mind, L1 is a mandated requirement, and we could look at L2, L3 depending on when we put Q1 L1 or Q1 L2 or Q1 L3. If we are able to justify the costs of L1, of L2 or L3, that could be one perhaps a good way forward. But the best way forward to my mind is, given the technology thresholds that are there and the fact that there are diligence in terms of accelerated user cum reliability trials. There are also a lot of data that you can collect when you are looking at major procurements. I think it will be a good idea to do a due diligence using life cycle costing for the kind of data analytics that you can do to come up to the best L1 from a life cycle perspective. So I think with that, sir, I'll open the stage.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much to you, General Kapoor. And so, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, it's very interesting that General Kapoor has given us some actual live incidents of how he was able to use L1 and to look at it, and even after an audit, it succeeded. So from that, what do you take as a practitioner who has been into this as to how is it possible to make the best use of the existing L1 system?
Thank you all for coming to this webinar today. And General Kapoor has very well summarized the core of the L1. And I'll start in a little broader way. If you see the L1 nomenclature of L1 without understanding, people blame that process. But that is the core of it, as General Kapoor has rightly told just now. We cannot avoid it. But there are how the L1 is to be read is the process which most of us don't follow or don't do it properly. So we blame the system. We are literally throwing the baby with the bathwater. This is what is happening. So if you see the Ministry of Finance instructions which flow from the various parliamentary acts, and that is at the core of the decision making in the government for the expenditures from the government funds. I'm purely talking of the expenditures from the government consolidated funds. What is being done from the consolidated fund has to follow certain guidelines of the Ministry of Finance, because we have to go right quality, right quantity, right price, right time and place, and right source. So this is the guiding principle for any procurement from the government funds, what we do. Now, regarding the L1 is, if you read the lines, it is from the technically qualified bids. So if a bid is not technically qualified, it is out. So from the 4 technically qualified bid, if you select the L1, the lowest, because that is the only fair way, because we have to have some process for natural discovery of price, not the artificial way. There has to be transparency in that process. So this is the only way. When I outlined every condition right at the bidding stage, whatever conditions you want to allocate 50 points for the lowest price physically, and rest 50% for the technically point system. There are point system also, and whoever scores the maximum point will be qualified. Nobody will say anything. But then this particular process, I have to state in the tender bid at the time of bidding. So if you say it in bidding, it is all transparent. Everybody knew about it, the rules of the game, and they will go by that, abide by that, that they'll give the best thing. So having that some aberration is there, it may not happen. Now, coming to this new system of GEM, I think all of you must have seen the government e-marketplace. Why it is clicking with the government department? I think armed forces have also adopted that GEM purchase for several items, because it is all in the algorithm. So in that algorithm, the suppliers enroll, and we also put our specifications as per that. We may change it, and that changed specification is then tendered out. Then the bidders see there are algorithm guidelines are there. Now that will select the lowest bidder or the technically qualified. From that, they give you some flexibility to even reject the lowest one. There is a provision of that, and doesn't say, because no vendor questions those purchases. Nobody can question, because it is done by the computer. So that's why this process, that our decision-making process as on file, has been outsourced to that server in the GEM system, and no things are happening. So this is where I would say that L1 is the only way, only thing how we arrive at the decision-making of L1 is to be seen.
Yes, sir. So we will now we'll go towards that. Thank you very much. In fact, what you have just mentioned. See, very interestingly, what you have brought out in your thing is that we have got a process, an algorithm, which we have been able to also digitize. So this is also futuristic in nature, and it is working. is working in analog, it is working in digital.
Yes.
It's a very important takeaway from what you mentioned just. So with that, I will bring in General Ranjit Ghosh to give in his initial thoughts on what has just been said. Some examples from Anil Kapoor and this analog digital aspect of how the algorithm works. Over to General Ghosh.
Jay, viewers, firstly, I would like to thank General Matharu for having introduced me to the panelists as well as the viewers. Coming straight to the context of the subject today, that is L1 system, its efficacy as well as its best practices. The thought that comes to my mind is why L1? So L1 is the least cost system. It is because we are carrying out procurements which are from the public money. We have to be very sure as to how it is being spent in terms of transparency, probity, integrity, competitiveness, and of course, all other aspects that go into it. So with that, the L1 has come into place. L1 is a culmination of other aspects which has been brought out by Anil Kapoor as well as Mr. Gupta regarding the cost factor, the quality factor, the technical aspects, the other things such as delivery in time and others which go into it. Now, as far as the L1 is concerned, there are variations within the L1 which have been adopted to make it efficient, and it has stood the times of the past as well as today, because there are ways to tweak the L1 system through appropriate weightages, as was brought out. While the system of public procurements goes into two aspects. One is the technical aspects and second is the financial aspects. The giving any weightage to either of the two more can lead to certain fallouts. Just for an example, if we go for, it is something akin to the vendor rating, where for a vendor, when we start rating vendors, because we are picking up a vendor as the L1, one of the vendors or two vendors, L1, L2, L3, whichever is the sequence as per the acceptance from necessity which has been accorded, and the RFP has brought out what will be the method. So based on that, what we are looking at is quality as well as the price and of course the delivery. These are the three aspects which are critical. The quality and price is well known. That leads to certain systems. The delivery is important, especially in case of certain procurements like fast track procurements in our case. If there is a problem at the borders, if there is an immediate requirement, then time is at premium. Whereas if it's a normal course of procurement, time can be delayed. So the weightages to each one of these, quality, price, delivery, and others, whatever you want to bring in, is going to vary as per the requirement. Requirement will again vary on the class of the product which is getting considered. It could be a goods, which could be a product or a weapon platform, whatever you are going in for. It could be a service, or it could be your MES works and other things. So each of the three will have different weightages assigned to each of these criteria. And these criteria will lead you to coming to the evaluation. All these have to be stated upfront when you are initially going in for the RFIs, where you're getting your tech specs or the qualitative requirements fixed up by interacting with the probable vendors, doing your internet surveys, going through your magazines and volume, whatever is which is going to pick up, and coming on to a specific AON price. Because the AON price is very critical. You cannot exceed it. You are taking a budgetary support to that. So you have to stay within that. So once you have formulated your RFIs and have firmed up your SQRs as per what is my user requirement, or what is, the user can be anyone. It can be any business. It can be the defense forces. It could be a civil or a military applications to the thing. So based on that, once you have developed your SQRs or the qualitative requirements in case of the civil, then you land up with your RFP, which gives out, which is a sacrosanct, or a tender in case of a civil district, which is a sacrosanct thing which comes out. And thereafter you have to go as per the rules of the game. You cannot violate anything, any of the provisions, because it is public money which is at cost. Coming on to certain aspects of electronic, like the GEM is something of an electronic platform, which has given some more methodologies which have been adopted to arrive at the L1. Again, the GEM has introduced certain places where the vendor had the advantage of going ahead in case he's quoted it very low and got the contract. So there is something known as a reverse auctioning, which is introduced, reverse tendering, where the buyer himself, which is the army or any other organization, it goes back and throws the price at the supplier to quote. So again, you come to a reasonable price. The whole aim is to get the lowest cost and the best product, which is meeting my requirements or the user's requirements. So that is how the L1 has stood its grounds over the period of time, and I think it can easily prevail in the future, because there are ways and means to tweak the system by assigning different weightages, assigning certain multipliers, and also deciding what the per se priority between the attributes.
That's very good, General Ghosh. Actually, what you have said, and before you, what Mr. Pradeep Gupta said, and the examples which Anil Kapoor had given, everything sort of points out that the algorithm, as was mentioned by Mr. Pradeep Gupta, and the weightages, as you have just mentioned, these are very important things which tend to make us feel that the system which has worked can now be digitized, and I think through digitization it can be empowered. This is food for thought for further, but for further thinking which we'll come to. But I'll come back to Mr. Pradeep Gupta. So, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, what do you feel that the whole process, as we have seen, analog, digital, weightages, all of it, is it possible for us to further improve the system? Mr. Pradeep Gupta.
Thank you, General Matharu, and thank you, General Ghosh. What General Matharu has mentioned about the digital and analog thing, digital or the digitalization of the complete tendering process, and the algorithm decides, is a good way to decide on a lot of issues. Because if I was processing a file for, say, taxi contract, and I invite bids, somebody makes a bid very absurdly low. So how will this system respond? So when this was happening, it was in 2017, 18, 19, I think, when this gem was picking up and the service thing was happening. So I discussed with them that the absurd bids are coming. So then I gave them a suggestion that the algorithm itself can, based on the feedback, they can put AI into it and work out some way that the such absurd bids are outrightly eliminated as soon as it is submitted, and it is not even exhibited to us. So this is where the system can function. There is, I feel, I gave this suggestion to the procurement group people in the MOD, that we can explore certain things being done in a digital manner, and rest of the things can come through the actual processing of the file. But then this is a very far cry, and the defense contracts or defense procurements are very complex, because that is all the technical competency of the bidder, which is going to be tested first. And based on the accepted, the issue comes somewhere where why we get jittery about the L1, that somewhere we are not able to decide on technical parameters. While making the specifications, we are not very clear on this. Because of that, missing out certain facts, certain issues, we land in trouble, and then we try to blame the L1 system. So if I prepare the specifications very clearly, outline all the conditions beforehand, that while submitting the bid, if he has 10 years experience in executing a project, whereas somebody has 2 years executing the experience in executing the project, the 10 years one will get, say, 10 points, and the 2 years one will get 2 points. So if you add up all the points, and everybody knows, we outline this criteria right at the bidding stage. And at one stage in my career, we have done this thing, and there have been no issues about it till date. It's almost 6 years, 7 years ago. So it was a complex project which was to be rolled on ground with several inputs, and it was a security thing. So that's where some execution was also involved, and some experience was also required. some turnover was also essential. So everything was made on the chart, and we had very clearly told that somebody having this much experience will be given this much points, and the person and the lowest price in this item will be given this much point. It's not that 100% points will be only for the financing.
Pradeep Gupta, what you are saying is very good, because especially what this has come out very clearly, that if this process is followed professionally and thoroughly, then it succeeds. But
Yes.
sometimes there is a element of dissatisfaction. We have a question from one of our participants, that is Air Commodore Murali. So now, would you like to address a question to a particular panelist or in general?
I just wanted, first of all, to all the three panelists actually on my concern, and I fully agree with Mr. Pradeep Gupta sir what he said, and that is exactly what I was also thinking. Sometimes what happens is that mandatory trace, when it comes to airborne platforms, like as Mr. Pradeep Gupta rightly said about the complexity, we can make mandatory trace, but everything in an unproven product, like when you do indigenization, like for example, you take the LCA. So we have quite a bit of like looms. You cannot make a mandatory trace which is very, very foolproof. So as we evolve from the EOI stage to EOI/RFQ stage to the bidding stage and pre-bid stage, the situation changes. The mandatory trace changes. So it is not that at the end you get the right person. So most of the time we land up with a non-qualified guy, and then we lose time. Sir, my suggestion is, after seeing here in GMR, when I see the Boeing bid, which that was a learning exercise for me, wherein the OEM has done a RFP by invite. In fact, what they did is they compartmentalized a few MROs, and then they evaluated them, and they are defining it with the US government approval. It is a direct bid from Boeing Shial, and they said that RFP by invite, we won the bid. So RFP by invite means they come and leave it for 1 or 2 to 3 weeks and see our work ethics, quality. They give some situations, how to overcome, how are we tackling that, and then they select. So this is a very big 3,500 crore contract, which is going to be further up. So
that's actually will, because you raised a very interesting point. Let's take the response to the panelists on that. Ranjit, please, can you respond to that? This RFP by invite.
Yes, I would like to answer this, sir. Primarily, what one should see is that there is always a way out of going into the methodology that you want. Like if a technical parameter is getting affected or is not being considered correctly, you can always say that in the technical bids, these are the parameters up to in which out of the 5-10 vendors coming in, the minimum score is going to be 50%. Otherwise, you are not in. So technically, a minimum threshold is set 60% or whatever it is, and you say technically now these 10 out of the 10, 4 are compliant. So that caters for the technical part. Just L1 alone without only price is not going to pay off. Second is the people quoting very less. One is the technical, second is the financial. Financially, you can always put the benchmark cost, the A1 cost, the benchmark cost. Now you put another yardstick where you put a minimum threshold for the price, where you say whatever is the L1 price which we arrive at will not be less than 10%, 20% below the price that we have arrived at or the A1 has been taken at. So this will cater for both the problems. And similarly, RFP in location or whatever it is how you formulate your RFI, go on to your SQRs and go on to your RFP. So anything is possible. Only thing is it has to be formulated and put on paper, because thereafter you can't deviate from it. It is sacrosanct.
Thank you very much, Ghosh. I think Mr. Pradeep Gupta also wants to say something on this.
Yes, thank you, Anil Ghosh. You have solved everybody's problem that very nicely has put up that we have to do the homework on paper. That is what I'm also suggesting, that we have to be transparent. Whatever rules you want to make for the game, you make it in the beginning and give it to everybody. Don't change the rules while the game is on. People have problems. Another problem.
Excellent point you make. Anil Kapoor, your take on this? RFP by invite, RFP in location, rules.
We already have these systems in place of expression of interest. We actually issue an expression of interest, giving out very clearly what we desire. and then based on that, we get bids, and based on those bids, we decide. Actually, it's a very deliberate exercise. We go around and decide as to who are those who would really meet our muster, and those who have shown interest but would not meet the muster in the foreseeable future or distant future. And then we only pick up those on whom we can repose faith, and then take it forward from there. So I think these are some very established systems and norms in the government, because after all these procedures, the way we are discussing, have been deliberated, and there's a huge experience behind everybody. But just as a tailpiece, what I'd like to say is that today with technology, having taken a 4-seat and the way disruptions are happening, I think the L1 can best be disrupted by following life cycle costings. Whether it's a new system, because I'm looking at mega systems that we're going in for procurement. While GEM is very good for revenue, when we look at capital procurements, I think that's where we need to show prudence. And when we have to show prudence, I think whether it is indigenous or imported systems, life cycle costing and how we arrive at may perhaps give us the best solution.
Thank you. Actually, what you say about life cycle costing is very, very important. So, Mr. Pradeep Gupta, your views on that?
Yes, it is the document which I have linked at a very important place. It says the cost will be decided not only on the price which is there of the item. Life cycle attempt should be made. It says that attempt should be made to capture the life cycle cost. So it very the manual.
No doubt the document is saying that and all that. But what I'm saying is, what is your personal view about the possibility
life cycle
of
cost has to be captured? Only the issue is that we have to make certain rules for capturing that price. We are
the aspect of data. How much data would you need to look at?
So a lot of data, and here I think for the defense equipment, the complex equipment, there is no organization as better as MRO. They have the best experience in the complete armed force. I'm assuming that like we have army officers, we have this Navy officers as well as the Air Force officers, all three. So in their own domain, they are the experts. They can share their experience and tell us that in their as per this experience, this component required these many replacement, these many services, these many defects have happened. Though the vendor says it like this. So
yeah, that's very good. Actually, what you say is that there are certain challenges of bringing this LCC.
Yes.
So
yes.
Your views life cycle concept. What though it is desirable, but amount of data need and how to make a very. So I think I'll open this also to the participants. Anybody else who would like to ask a question can raise a hand. General along there, please, sir.
Thank you, General Matharu. All three speakers have brought out the need for a sensible way of deciding on the L1. Life cycle, yes, as a concept, it's excellent. How to arrive at the life cycle concept is something you are about to ask. Mr. Gupta has spoken about GEM. Many of us have dealt with GEM. Now, GEM has been made by Government of India to deal with procurement of everything on a uniform basis, right from paper clips to office furniture. Now, the scope of GEM has to increase vastly if we are going to go in for defense military procurements as well. If you need high mobility vehicles somewhere, if you need artillery ammunition somewhere, so what is the scope of the GEM? The point about getting the system for the L1, the terms of reference in deciding the L1 is actually most important, because L1 is practical, it's sensible. But then everybody is talking about transparency, but that only works out if you understood the scope of the entire equipment. And one suggestion has been given that it can be done by an MRO party. You have to have an MRO component. At the same time, somebody who understands how this equipment is going to be employed, deployed, that is extremely important. And along with this, the most important person who's going to remain there, the procurement specialist. Unfortunately, in India, our defense procurements, we do not have people who are going to be there to get experience and be there for 10 to 12 to 15 years, unlike in certain other countries like in the US, where their procurement industry is huge. They have defense people, specialists who are working on this. So to get that algorithm correct, whether it is for a paper clip, whether it is for something else, as and when the scope of the computerization expand, that actually is our biggest challenge. There's nothing wrong with the L1 concept per se, but to get the terms of reference right, many people trip up because they are not able to list out what exactly it requires. And then when some question comes up, have you thought of this? Then they come a cropper. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dev. I think we have come with that interjection by General Alok Dev. Now, we have got a pretty nice point where we can now sort of sum up this panel. So I will now request the panelists, unless some participant wants to ask a question at this stage, please raise a hand. Just hold on. I think we have got Group Captain Ashok wanting to ask a question. Please go ahead.
Also, I don't have a question, but about GEM, what I have to say is that today GEM is open to taking any kind of procurement. And that what they have done is that they have introduced a system called custom bid. And in custom bid, it depends on the end user what you want, be it a tank or be it an aircraft. I think today they are well geared up. It is for us to match them because they are progressing at a very fast pace and they are quite elastic and they are quite ready and willing to, undertake any kind of modification or improvement. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Group Captain Ashok. So with that, I think we have got this little input regarding GEM from Group Captain Ashok. I would now request the panelists to sum up, to give their final views on the discussion till now, and how do you think, what are the points you would leave with the audience as to related to the best practices in L1 systems, and what is it that needs to be done, which you have mentioned in a gist, if you can say, to make the most out of the system. Over to first to Mr. Pradeep Gupta.
Okay, thank you, General Matharu, for giving this opportunity. I was, before coming for this webinar, I went through certain documents and I was thinking that L1 will be the villain. But then here I'm very happy to see that everybody is appreciating the L1. Yes, terms of reference, very rightly pointed out. One is that terms of reference have to be very transparently, clearly laid down. And if there is some confusion in that, we had it then. My reference to GEM was not that the defense procurement should become part of GEM, but Defense Ministry or the procurement board can evolve its own algorithm. It's a very complex, and they can prepare their own dedicated algorithm to outsource so many controversial things where they can say, yes, this algorithm has decided. I did not do anything and this is the outcome. There are issues regarding the technical parameters to be, because we set the specification in such a manner that we have to lower down certain things at midway. We don't get the correct bid. Then the actual problem starts, because we cannot play with the specifications, we cannot do the things here and there and then make somebody technically qualified. Those who don't get the opportunity to be qualified, they then cry hoarse. So this is where, and GEM algorithm can be copied and improved by the armed forces officer. For the weapon procurement, I feel it should be kept within the control of the Defense Ministry, not the GEM. And you may adopt the similar thing for here, for weapon procurement. If not the 100% weapon procurement can happen, some part can be delegated to some algorithmic decision.
We have another question from the participant, Brigadier YVR Vijay, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. So we are looking only at this whole L1 thing from the capital acquisition point of view, but we have to also look at it from projects point of view. So if we see at how, especially in the government, the minister, Mr. Gadkari, how he has changed their bidding system to see how they are able to achieve quality and timelines, etc. He has introduced certain other parameters into the bidding system, which looks at quality, time, and then also cost. So one method they've introduced is called QCBS, where the bidder must qualify on quality parameters completely, the technical level that is required for the project, and then the least cost is selected. The second is in certain projects where quality is all important, is called QBS, where they define that this is the maximum cost you can go to, and then quality is given the maximum weightage. The third is when the product is standardized, everybody knows this is the product, there is not much variation in the product. There they go in for a pure L1 bidding system. In certain infrastructure projects, they've also introduced a tax component to get the time in, where they say there will be a penalty LD on delay deliveries. So there are a lot of aspects to be learned from the how the infrastructure projects, government contracts are done when we look at the defense ones also. That is what I wanted to bring in.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vijay. That's very nice. You brought in best practices elsewhere also. So now with this, I would now request, having Mr. Pradeep Gupta has given his sort of closing remarks. May I have the closing remarks first from General Ghosh and then finally from General Anil Kapoor. General Ghosh, over to you.
I'll just come back to what we were discussing with regards to what is the way ahead today. What we find that the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020 has taken care of a lot of voids which were there earlier. In terms of if you are looking at something of much more than what your present parameters were giving in terms of your essential parameters, you're looking at certain enhanced parameters technically. In that, they are giving a weightage in terms of a credit rating of up to 10%, where each of the attributes can go up to a maximum of 3%. By this, you are trying to promote a vendor who is, suppose there are 3 vendors, one has come at 100 rupees, one has come at 99, take it in crores, and one has come at 98. So the 100 rupee guy, if he's met all the enhanced performance parameters, he lands up with a 10% credit rating. If that means if it is about 100 crores, he will be quoted at 98 crores. So despite he is 90, there is a guy at 99 and he has come down to 98 and he gets the preference by achieving that enhanced performance parameter in his product. That is one. Similarly, what we have done in all the other cases, like it be make 1, make 2, make 3. In make 1, where the government is funding 70%, they are looking at a weightage for both the prototype development phase plus the product phase in the statement of case. However, the amount to be released will be the prototype phase, which will be released in terms of the money. Whereas in the case of the industry funded wave 2, they are not looking at this particular method because it is the industry which is funding it. You come on to the innovation ones, they are going for something else completely. You go into ICT, they are looking at not the L1 system, they are looking at the quality come cost basis on which they are, because they are very high-tech specialists who are working. They require to be paid more, and it is the quality of the product, it is the quality of the integrators who are getting into that product. So in ICT cases, they have gone in for they have recommended that this is the system which should be adopted. Similarly, in case of contracts like maintenance, not maintenance, like your MES or your construction and all, they are looking at just your cost basis. That is not just a pure L1. There is no technical requirements coming in. So each of these methods are prevailing in the DAP today. There are different weightages given within that prototype versus implementation phase. They have given a 30-70, recommended a 30-70 ratio. 30 for prototype, 70 for the final, because they have calculated certain models based on which they have come. This is probably the ideal. It may go 35, 65 or 75, 25. But these are the models which have been developed to cater for this L1 and yet modify it to the pitfalls or the shortcomings of the past. Besides this, all other cases of level playing field or competitiveness which was lacking has been taken care of, either in case of your exchange rate variations, which varies with the dollar exchange rates over a period, or even your price variation clauses coming in if your contracts go beyond deliverables go beyond 36 months, there is a factor which is factored in. So similarly, they have catered for everything, and Jem Kapoor had brought out life cycle sustenance management is already included as one of the factors in the procurement process, where it has to be bought in with the main contract. Yes, the via media and the modalities of working out the weightages or the aspects of life cycle sustenance in terms of what all you need, in terms of your IOD or whichever level of maintenance, upgrades, modifications, life extension, lifetime buys, whatever it is, that may have to be factored in. Any rate contracts can be factored in with the main contract. All this has been catered. So this particular shortcomings, whatever existed, we have continuously improved with each of these DPPs going on to a DAP today over the last 2002 onwards or maybe 91 onwards as the confidential.
Thank you. Actually, General Ghosh, what you said is you have brought up to date. Actually, a lot of listeners will be now thinking with what you have just said that there's so much to study. And General Kapoor, you just mentioned that LCC, some element is there of that already there, but the modalities, as we have all said, are going to be easier said than done. That is what the General Dev also in his interjection mentioned. Now, with that, I will like to close this panel discussion by thanking our eminent panelists, and I think it's everybody would have gained from this talk. The gist which is coming out is that there are a lot of procedures which need to be studied, and with which thoroughness of professionalism, if we can do that, we will be able to maybe use the procedures, even refine them better. And the best practices which are available elsewhere also need to be looked at, I feel. And that's what is emerging out of the thing, because maybe sometimes not somebody else is already doing something which is very good, and other people have to pick it up from there. And it's another very heartening thing to see is that there's an element of digitization. Just as a stop here, and General Kapoor wants to say something. Go ahead, General Kapoor.
Yes. I think, sir, just two thoughts that come to my mind. One is, especially when we look at defense, two issues we need to factor into our structures for procurement, mega procurements. The first is data science. I think we need to pick up subject matter experts who are put through data science as data scientists. Today, say we bought Rafale or we buy any other equipment, there is a lot of usage which is happening in so many countries. And it may be a good idea to pick up that data to carry out some look into LCC, because while all procedures are very foolproof and do exist, I think prudence lies in being able to collect the right data at the right time to create the right responses. So that is one issue which we need to look at. The second is we need to get very good negotiators. I think negotiation is something that we lack in our systems. We need to be hardcore negotiators, and I've seen in most of the times if you're able to closely meet the benchmark that you've laid down, you're quite happy with that, and your benchmark may actually have been quite suboptimally done. But are you getting the best bang for the buck? I'm not sure. And therefore, I've seen these two things which are happening globally now, that a lot of data scientists are being picked up to carry out enough homework before we go in for these things. And I think that may be a mandated requirement now, and we should build it into our defense system as well. And second, of course, is some hardcore negotiators. And both of them obviously have to be subject matter experts, so that you can get the best. I thought I'll just bring in these two issues.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, you brought in some very nice futuristic looking aspects. And as we grow into a larger and larger economy on the world stage and everybody looking at us, I think it's about, these are maybe the steps which will help us, really not only shape the negotiations and shape the future, but also be a big player in showing how things can be done in a best way. Our success in UPI, our success in so many fields are very good examples to follow, and that will strengthen us, no doubt, as a nation. And as we say in MRO Digest, we feel that the specialized people who have been in MRO, who have got a multifaceted knowledge of everything, because of by virtue of being in MRO, can really contribute towards increasing our comprehensive national power. With those words, I will now like to thank all our panelists once again, and to the viewers and the listeners, The links to the profiles of our panelists are available in the show notes below. You are welcome to contact them through their profiles to seek further guidance. And with that, I would once again thank everybody and close this panel discussion today. Jai Hind.